Welcome to the Hockey Writers Maple Leafs Lounge, a weekly show from our Toronto Maple Leafs writing crew, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, prospects, and much more. From training camp to the playoffs, from draft day to the trade deadline, our team covers everything that happens with the blue and white. Come on in and pull up a chair. Welcome to the Maple Leafs Lounge.
Hello and welcome back to the Maple Leafs Lounge. I am your host, Peter Baracchini, and once again this week I am joined by our producer slash Canucks writer slash Maple Leaf fan for the time being during these playoffs, Matthew Zator. Matt, it has been a very eventful week. We are going to get to a lot of things about the Maple Leafs right now because it just seemed like last week we were talking about round two, getting ready and excited. This team is motivated. And it's gone. Kind of insert that, South Park meme where and it's gone kind of thing. But before we get into the Maple Leafs talk, Matt, how are you doing this week?
Doing good, yeah. Tale of 2 weeks. we were all happy and optimistic, and Matthew Knies was going to score four goals, and now the Leafs are down 3-0 and Knies is injured. So
I will say this, after he scored that beautiful goal in game one, I actually thought that, you know what, here we go. This is the Matthew Knies show. This is what we've been waiting for. And then game two, the hit that should have been suspension worthy on Sam Bennett. And actually, I want to get your take on that too, because the NHL officiating has, before we get into everything else, the NHL officiating has been, I'm going to put it in a nice way, not so good. And that's the nice way of me saying it. And you could tell, like, in every single series, there's at least 2-3 calls where fans are just saying, what are you doing? And obviously, Bennett got fined for a cross check on Michael Bunting. But then again, that was a similar play that Auston Matthews made last year on Rasmus Dahlin, and he got suspended for that. So what is your take on that whole entire hit situation in regards to Matthew Knies, and also why the inconsistency is still there when it comes to officiating and supplemental discipline?
Yeah, it's always been. I mean, the regular season and the playoffs, it just seems like there's two different standards, and it should be the same. It obviously not, and it's never been. I don't think throughout the time the playoffs, it just seems like they are a little more lenient in the calls. Like they let a lot of more things go. Sometimes it's good because you don't want the stop and go and that choppiness of the game where you keep having penalties, but you also want the penalties that are penalties to be called, and that plus the discipline should be the same as the regular season. Yes, we don't agree with everything in the regular season either. Whenever there's a bad hit or a play that should be suspended, and then there are times where they do get suspended and it's just not long enough. So it's like, in this case there was no suspension at all, and this is something where Knies got hurt. He's out for the series, it sounds like, and there's no suspension. I'm always the belief, and this will never happen because, there's always times where maybe a player's out for the season or whatever. I'm of the belief that as long as if you do it and you hurt a player, you should be out as long as the player is out. So if the player has a season-ending injury, I'm sorry, you're out for the season. I mean, that would deter it, wouldn't it? I mean, okay, the guy's only out for a game, then the guy's only out for a game. You're out as long as that guy is hurt. And like I said, it'll never happen. I think it's something that would really get a lot of people angry.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but yeah, I feel like it should have at least got a suspension. I think maybe 2 games. Playoff games are a lot more substantial. I think they're the equivalent of 1 game in the playoffs is like 2 regular season.
2, yeah.
So I think that he should have at least got 2, but he's able to play, and I think he even scored in the next game too. So I mean, it's tough, but I mean, it just seems like it's always that way in the playoffs.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, I could go on and on about on this show here, previous podcasts, everything like that, where the officiating and we rant on and on about it. But if I agree and disagree with your thing about like if the player is out long term, then the suspension should equate to that. I think it should be fine because you do the crime, you do the time kind of thing, right? But on the other side of things, it's just like you said, it's not going to happen. And unfortunately, in regards to the Knies hit, you know, it's no different than the Michael Bunting hit on Eric Chernak in game 1 of the first round. I mean, obviously, it seemed like Michael Bunting was bracing for impact, but he still got his elbow up. He hit him in the head, and he got injured, left. And what happened? He got suspended. I think 3 may have been a little bit harsh, or a little bit high, but he deserved a suspension, and 2 games was fine. Yet Knies is injured in this one. Bennett is still playing, and he's out with the injury, and there's nothing. I mean, I don't understand like why you set that as a precedent if you're not going to follow it. In hindsight, that probably should have been 3 games for Bennett too, or at minimum 2, because like you said, it may, if he is able to come back, fine, but we didn't know the length of how long Chernak would be out. We don't know well, we knew that Knies would be out for 3-4 games, but we don't know if it's going to be on beyond. Should the Maple Leafs win game 4 and take it game by game? But yeah, it's just very, very wildly inconsistent, and there's no precedent. It seems like they're just throwing darts on a board and coming up with ideas for suspensions or discipline. It just doesn't make sense at this point. And you know what? Let's get into actual hockey talk instead of complaining about the officiating, because we're going to get a lot of comments. Oh, don't worry about the officiating, worry about the game. But in the series against the Panthers, games 1 and 2, or I'm going to say that before I get into that, it's a tale of 2 stories, or 2 series so far. Outplayed the opponent in Panthers in games 1 and 2. Despite having the mistakes, they still clawed their way back and forced great chances on Sergei Bobrovsky, who's been fantastic during the series. But then you have the effort that you have in game 3, where you get off to that strong lead and there is no response at all. Matt, what do you make of, showing that kind of will to still fight in the first 2 games, but nothing at all in game 3?
Yeah, it was like you said, games 1 and 2 was, Maple Leafs had a lot of chances, and they had leads. I believe in game 2, they had the 2-0 lead, right? And Panthers came back, won 3-2. And then game 3, yeah, like you said, it doesn't seem like they had it. And to me, you have your starting goalie. We'll talk about that, right? And your starting goalie go out for an injury, and you got a rookie goaltender go in. You should play even higher at a higher level, just so that he's not thrown to the wolves, and all the pressure's on him to perform while you're not performing in front of him. I think they should have had a higher energy level when he got in, but it doesn't seem like they didn't have it in that game. You're down 2-0 in a series. I'm sorry. You should be cranking it up. I mean, you go 3-0 down. What is it? 4 teams have come back in the history of the NHL. So, I mean, your odds are really, really low that you're going to come back to win. So don't get down 3-0. So your effort level should be to the max in that game. And it didn't seem like it just seemed like the Panthers they were playing better, and they deserved to win that game. So full marks to the Panthers for being up 3-0, because I think, goaltending, and you shouldn't apologize for having a good goaltender or having a goaltender that's playing well. And Bobrovsky's just outplayed. I don't know if he's really outplayed Samsonov, because Samsonov's played pretty well in this series. He got hurt, unfortunate, because he was one of their better players in the first 2 games. So, yeah, but I was surprised with the effort level in that game 3.
Yeah, it is, and like I said, they got off to the start that they wanted. You had Auston Matthews hit off the post, like a minute in, and then you had Sam Lafferty, or you had multiple 2-on-1s, and Sam Lafferty capitalizing off a great feed from David Kampf to give them that 1-0 lead. And that should have been the momentum boost for that team. That should have been not necessarily the dagger in the Florida Panthers because there was still a lot of hockey left, but that should have been to say, hey, we're trying to break free. Let's continue the momentum. Don't give them anything. And then, they let him back in. There was, the bad turnover that led to the injury for Ilya Samsonov at the blue line. Then there's Justin Hall allowing Anthony Duclair walk right in because he's so far away, it doesn't clog up the middle of the ice more to take that space away. And Duclair goes in, gets the breakaway. And then you have Verhaeghe, or I believe it was Verhaeghe, bank shot off the backside and it goes in, fluke goal. But it's those bounces and opportunities that went the Panthers' way. And it seems like that's not going to Maple Leafs right now, but they got to dig in. They got to find that killer instinct. They got to find out that aspect that made them successful in the last series that just is eluding them right now. They got to find that extra gear. I mean, there's no other way to put it. If we thought that, game 3 was going to be a do or die game, this is literally their do or die game right now. And that's why they needed to have that mentality to play like their life depended on it, like their season depended on it. And they basically failed that challenge. And it's very worrisome because you see the way that Maple Leafs fans are reacting, how, they're very uneasy because they just want that effort and compete level. And I'm just probably, transitions well into our next topic, and Matthews and Marner, and even the core four in general. I mean, they have been extremely, extremely quiet during the series after, Marner and Matthews were leading the charge, especially Matthews with 5 goals against the Lightning. No goals in this series right now. I believe Marner doesn't have a point in this series. I think Nylander only has 1 assist. So Marner has 1 assist, Nylander 1 assist. John Tavares doesn't have anything. Obviously, you rely on your stars to lead the way. I mean, we saw what Jack Hughes did in game 3 when they were down 2-0, and I believe he just scored to put the Devils up 1-0 in game 4 against the Carolina Hurricanes. Right now, if I'm trying to go into the future, try and talk as if I'm talking into the now instead of referring to tomorrow, but whatever. You're seeing stars rise up. You're seeing that in Edmonton. You're seeing that in Seattle, giving the Dallas Stars a good run. Why is it that, when it comes to Matthews and Marner, they fail to rise to the occasion in these kind of do or die games or big game moments where they need to succeed?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer, because the thing is they did step up against Tampa Bay a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're their best players and almost every game. And you go into this series and maybe they were caught off guard. Maybe they're reading too much in the headlines that they're the better team than Florida. Maple Leafs fans wanted the Panthers. Well, you have them and they're dying, mm-hmm. and your best players aren't showing why you wanted them in the first place. The Panthers are the better team, and they're better. Their best players are their best players. Matthew Tkachuk, Carter Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett,
Brandon Montour.
All those guys are their best players right now. Sergei Bobrovsky, mm-hmm. And that's the difference in this series right now. And Matthews and Marner, Nylander, Morgan Rielly, John Tavares, Ryan O'Reilly, all those guys that stepped up in the first round, they need to get it going, because they don't, well, we know what happens. They're out. So they got to get it going in game 4, or they're going to be playing golf pretty soon. And that's what it is. I mean, I heard one story about that. Maybe they're not ready for a second round because they've never been there. And it's tough because, I mean, John Tavares, he's been in the second round before.
Yeah.
A long time ago. But, all these guys, they're not used to this. I don't know if they're not saying you're not used to the pressure, but in a series like this, and I mean, Ryan O'Reilly is, I mean, he's won the cup. So, I mean, he knows what a second round is, but that's one guy. And he's not their best player. And Matthews and Marner, they've got to lead the way. And like you said, nothing really. They've got to, Matthews got to score some goals, and it's got to start in game 4, like I said, or they're going to be, they're going to be out of the playoffs.
And I understand where you're coming from with the fact that, they haven't played in a second round. They just got over the first round demons, but it really shouldn't matter
No,
because the fact is you got past that first round curse that had plagued for so long, and everyone is going to say, oh, well, if they lose, this is going to be another lesson learned. Well, technically, no, it isn't,
no.
because that series win against the Lightning was them learning their lesson despite being heavily outplayed. This should motivate them to be better. And
Yeah.
for them to be down this early, 3-0, I mean, it seems like they really haven't learned a thing. And, from the Boston series collapses or losing momentum in those games, especially in game sevens, to the Montreal game, those were, instances where they didn't learn their lesson. After those instances, they should have learned their lesson. And we're still not seeing it. I honestly don't care if it's the first round, second round, third, whatever. You need to be at your best. You need to play at your best. And the stars need to shine. And they can't just, keep taking the easy way out with, cliche comments saying that, we're trying to do our best and everything like that. No, they need to start calling themselves out. They need to say that, we heard the Devils call themselves out after poor performances, and look what happened. They bounced back. The Edmonton Oilers have called themselves out, saying that, effort wasn't good enough. I mean, Draisaitl had a 4-goal game and they still lost. And they said, and you see Draisaitl's reaction, not good enough. Those 4 goals basically mean nothing because they lost. That's the attitude that the Maple Leafs and Matthews and Marner should be, having right now. Because right now what they're saying, it just kind of seems like they're at a loss for words. And they've said these same comments in the past. And to me, it's just like an empty promise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agreed. And that's like I say, they've got to outplay the Panthers' best players. And right now they're so far away from them. It's tough to win a series when your best players aren't doing that.
And this is probably the best opportunity, I would say even better than the 2021 bubble, because you already knocked off Tampa. Florida did you a solid and knocked off the Boston Bruins. I mean, you would expect them to say, hey, okay, thanks, but no thanks. We're going to be the team to move on kind of thing. Colorado got knocked out by Seattle. I guess you could say that these playoffs are very unpredictable, but at the same time, you're getting responses from everybody. And the Maple Leafs are the only team to not give a response except for, the Tampa Bay series. And that's a big problem. Before we get into the second half of our show, here's a quick word from the hockey writers.
Interested in writing for the Hockey Writers? If you have experience writing about hockey, are passionate about the sport, and are looking to take your writing to the next level, the Hockey Writers could be the place for you. Here at THW, you will have the opportunity to hone your craft at one of the world's largest and most respected hockey publishers. You will have control over what you write, be able to seek out media credentials, and be supported by a large network of writers and editors. Plus, you'll get paid for doing it. If you're interested and want to know more about team openings and requirements, please visit the Write for THW page on the Hockey Writers website. A link to that page is also listed in the description.
And we are back to the Maple Leafs Lounge. And as we kick off the second part of our show, the big news is from Game 3. Ilya Samsonov was knocked out of the game after being in a collision with Luke Schenn. Again, we talked about it earlier before, how there's a turnover at the blue line, goes the other way. Luke Schenn tries to block it, and he collides with Samsonov. There was reports that he is feeling better. They're still doing extra tests. He isn't playing in Game 4, but obviously we wish Samsonov the best and hope he recovers well, and hopefully he can come back in the series, and hopefully that the brick wall himself, Joseph Woll, insert another brick in the wall, Pink Floyd pun, whatever you want to call it, came in relief. And Matt, you mentioned it at the top of the show, how the Maple Leafs needed to, alleviate the pressure off him. But just like the stretch during the regular season and even in the past in the AHL, it seemed like Woll wasn't fazed by the competition. And it is confirmed that he is going to start Game 4. Sheldon keeps saying this is his net right now. I mean, obviously it was big shoes to fill coming in that moment after the starter goes out. But is this even more pressure on Woll? And can he thrive just like he did in the past in big moments?
Well, I mean, he's shown that he can. I mean, he's an NHL goaltender. We know this. I mean, he's played pretty well this regular season whenever he's gone in the net. Played really well. I mean, it gave him a chance to win. in when he came in relief there, and it was just unfortunate that he lose in overtime, but he played really well. I mean, I think they probably could have lost in regulation if he didn't make a few of those saves. And I think he can step up to the challenge. It's if the team in front of him can. And that's, I think, the biggest thing. I mean, he can play as well as he can. And the rest of them don't defend well, don't score any goals. Doesn't matter how well he plays. I mean, like I said, Samsonov has been really good in this series. Goaltending has not been the problem of why the Maple Leafs are down 3-0. It's the team in front of the crease. So it's like, I think Woll will do a good enough job, and he'll give them a chance to win Game 4. Will the team in front of him help him out?
And it has been low scoring affairs. Like, I mean, it was 3-2 in games 2 and 3, and then 4-2 in game 1. And you look at Woll's numbers from, his time in college to when he turned pro. Obviously, a bit of adjustment. He dealt with injuries, but season after season, he has gotten progressively better, and he's putting up numbers that show, hey, I'm the real deal right now. I'm the one battling for the net, and I'm the one that's, he's essentially knocking on the door of Matt Murray's time and saying, hey, step aside. I'm going to be the backup or the starter come next season. And I'm sorry, but your time is up. And he did make a lot of key saves. And like you said, it's the plays in front of him and even Samsonov that have, killed any sort of momentum for the Maple Leafs. And I think if he's there to shut the door and still give him that fighting chance, hopefully this is a sign to say, hey, if the backup is coming in, although, you should still play well no matter who's in net. If our backup is giving us that chance to fight, maybe we can too. And maybe Marner is not making plays that, he rarely makes and, doesn't, I go back in time saying that, or time and time again saying that, he's making plays right now that he didn't make in the regular season. So why is he making these plays right now and putting the defense in a bad spot, the goaltenders in a bad spot? They need to clean a lot of things up, but, Woll made some highlight reel saves coming in relief. And I think that is his moment to say, hey, I belong here and I'm going to get the job done. Moving over to our next topic, and obviously this is basically a doom and gloom episode because of the fact they're down 3-0 in the series. And obviously we did talk about a bit how history isn't on the Maple Leaf side, but there have been 4 teams to come back down 3-0. They are the 1942, coincidentally, Toronto Maple Leafs. Hopefully that team can, hopefully they can shed some light on the team and help them out right now. Obviously, provide basically uplift the curse kind of thing.
Yeah.
The 1975 New York Islanders, the 2010 and more. I'm going to get into 2 recent ones, actually. The 2010 Philadelphia Flyers beating Boston in the quarterfinals, and the Los Angeles Kings beating San Jose in 2014. That is the most recent one. Matt, again, you said history is not on their side, but those 4 teams defied the odds. Is it still possible that this Maple Leafs team can be the 5th team to get it done, or is this still just a pipe dream and should we expect the worst?
Well, you say there's a chance. There's a chance. I mean, the thing is, and as long as there are teams that have done it before, you can always go back to that and you can say, it's been done. How did they do it? And there's always something that you see in those series where there's a turning point. And from what I remember, that LA San Jose series, LA was always in that series. And it was LA that came back, right?
LA beat San Jose, yes.
Team. Okay.
The scores were 6. San Jose beat them 6-3, 7-2.
Yeah, it was crazy at the beginning.
They just basically lost game 3, 4-3 in overtime.
Yeah. So it was bad. I remember those first few games, and it's like, it were just going to look like San Jose was just going to take out LA and in 4. Yeah. And it was all really, but I remember from those games is that even though they were getting blown out, the games were still, it just seemed like there could be something that could happen. There was always that spark that you kind of, okay, yeah, maybe. In this series, they've all been close games. And the first two games, like we said, Toronto seemed like they had more of the chances, and it was Bobrovsky that was keeping them in it. And then Florida just got those key goals. I think they need to get to Bobrovsky. And the problem is, as long as, and they've only had it where they haven't really gotten to him. And I think Bobrovsky's a little bit in their heads right now. And until that kind of dissipates, and maybe it'll happen in game 4. But it starts with game 4. So, I mean, once you get game 4, you're down 3-1. Okay, then you get, it just becomes kind of chipping away at it.
Yeah.
And I think what you look at is once you win that first one, now you say, okay, now we have to come back from 3-1. Now more teams have done that. And now you can look at how many teams have come back from 3-1 down. There's been a few that have done it this playoffs. So, I mean, you look at it and then you're like, okay, now it gets a bit better. Win that, now 3-2. Well, now it doesn't seem like it all. So, I mean, I think it's just you look at game by game, and it's a little easier to move through that. But the fact that only 4 have done it, and the last one was almost a decade ago now, it's still pretty tough. But you win game 4, and you just move on from there.
Just win one game, and that changes the whole momentum of the series, especially in something like this, because we know that the 4th one is the hardest one to close out. We saw that in, Maple Leafs in the previous series where they were up 3-1, Tampa Bay wins game 5. And I do agree in the sense that, yes, step-by-step process, chip away at it, go game by game. That is the only way you could get out of this mess. And I also wonder if you brought in players like Luke Schenn, you brought in Ryan O'Reilly. Those 2 guys have Stanley Cups for a reason. I mean, in regards to Tampa Bay, they kind of had dominant runs, but with the St. Louis Blues, they've even had their, moments of adversity during the postseason. Having someone like him come in to try and calm the nerves and get this team back on track. This is why you brought him in, and he wants to do something special with this team and win a cup and be the one to do that. So if he's able to try and get this team focused and dialed in, I think that's going to be key. And, you even mentioned Bobrovsky too. Like, they really haven't quite solved him, but there are a lot of tense moments where he's flopping around in the crease, doesn't know where the puck is, and either the puck is cleared out, Maple Leafs chip it wide or something like that, but it seems like luck is definitely on his side. If they continue to pepper shots at him and get in front of his lane, kind of like what they did with Vasilevsky, Bobrovsky's no Vasilevsky.
No.
I mean, he really isn't. I mean, he's starting to show like his Vezina form in the past, which is, a good sign, but he still had those down years where he wasn't living up to that contract. You want to plant the seed of doubt in him that say, hey, you're not going to try and steal the show from us. We're going to be the ones to, get in your face and be the ones to make your life miserable. And they need to do that a little bit more often. But again, the main factor is you have a leadership presence. You have players that have been there before. They need to get the job done, and they need to be the ones being vocal on the bench in between periods. Every single moment, they need to be talking and keeping that fire alight, because this is a team where if they lose focus, things go down south very quickly, and they don't want that to happen in game 4. As we get into this, could kind of be our final topic. It could be a short answer, Matt. It could be a long answer. It totally depends on how you're feeling right now. But obviously, they did great in winning one round. But now everyone is saying that because they won round, they're kind of being happy about it. Like, that was their kind of Stanley Cup moment. But we even talked during the show that they shouldn't, it shouldn't deter them. They should be focused and be even more motivated. Like, even though that they get swept possibly in this series, should they still be satisfied winning one round? Or is that just, the easy way out to say, yeah, we got the job done, but everyone is expecting more of us? What do you think about that?
Well, they shouldn't be satisfied like right now. I mean, it's something you can say afterwards. Like, if they end up losing and they're out, you can say, you can try and make yourself feel better that, okay, we win one round, we step by step. Next year, we'll win another one. I don't know. Like, it's tough because you shouldn't be going into it that way. You go into round 2 and say, we want to, the excitement after the first round was over the top. And you go into a second round and it shouldn't be that over the top after a first round win. You should be, okay, this is step one. We got to keep going. Now, we didn't see the players in the locker room going crazy like they won the Stanley Cup. It was the fans. I mean, it was outside the arena. It was all that. And that's understandable. It was exciting. But the players shouldn't have felt that way, that the one round is that's good enough, because this team is built, and I still think it's built to win a cup. It's just the Florida Panthers seem to be built to win a cup as well. They got, deep defense. They got a starting goalie that's now seems to be hitting his stride that they were hoping he would, that $10 million guy. And then you also got an offense that seems to be stepping up. Matthew Tkachuk, Conn Smythe, already in that running to be a Conn Smythe candidate. So I think just the fact that, they've just hit a team that seems to have a bit more on their side and a little more edge than they do. And that's unfortunate, because I still think this team is good enough to win more than one round, but they should not be satisfied with it. Even though they win a round, that shouldn't be the end goal, but it may end up being that.
Even if they win a game or two and they still get eliminated, they still shouldn't be satisfied at all, because they had a perfect opportunity to take a stranglehold and, prove that they're a top team in the league right now. Now you're getting, fans from other outlets saying that, this is exactly who we thought they were, kind of thing. But yeah, it just seems like, because I know that they post like little clips online, the Maple Leaf social media, about how they win a game. They, put a puck on a board to symbolize, each win is one step closer to the Stanley Cup. And, they even said it doesn't get easier. This is where the real work begins. And they just really haven't put in the real work at this point. So yeah, they shouldn't feel satisfied at all, no matter what the outcome is of the series. And it'll be a big disappointment that they managed to win one round all for nothing. If they were to win a second round and, move on and you play the Carolina Hurricanes or New Jersey Devils, again, good teams. And I'm not discrediting the Florida Panthers, because they're a really good team, but how they're losing to the Florida Panthers is basically unacceptable. There's no fire or anything. If they still had that fire and the work ethic and they still lose, they at least put forth the effort. We're not seeing that right now, which is why everyone is saying that, they shouldn't be satisfied with one win kind of thing. And if they get swept, that is disappointing. That one series win is basically meaningless at this point, because now you got to go back to square one. You got to go back next year and win another series. And what if you don't win a first round series? That's just going to be there's going to be even more questions than even right now. There are going to be a lot of questions depending on the outcome. So we'll see what happens. Again, like we said on the show, take it game by game. That is the rule. Win game 4. That is coming up. This video will be up actually before game 4. So future selves, let's hope that the Maple Leafs can win it and move on. And then hopefully next week we have a little bit more optimism to talk about here. But that is all that we have for this episode of the Maple Leafs Lounge. For Matthew Zator, I am Peter Baracchini, and we will see you next time.